So UMNO is currently divided. Some people will say two. I would argue into three major factions. So I call them, and forgive me for sort of perhaps spending too much time in self-quarantine. I call them these three factions: the desperados, the floaters, and the diehards. Okay. So now, what do I mean by that? Well, there's different groups. There are some that are concerned about their cases. There's others that are concerned about political and economic safety, and the others are more driven by protecting the party. These are different drivers of why they have some of them have shared interests of elections, and some of them want to get into office and to play positioning. But these are examples of some of the things that are happening in terms of the differences within a very divided party. And UMNO used to be the party that controlled everything in Malaysian politics. It's no longer the hegemonic party. And with that, we're in an era of coalition politics, but we're also in an era of end of UMNO hegemony. And they're trying to win it back. And, you know, it's difficult to understand.
Can they win it back?
They can win seats, all right? They can win. I think they can win the most seats, depending on how they work out on the seat negotiation.
But can they have hegemonic control like before?
I don't think that's likely because of the seat negotiations that are necessary for them to be able to. And I think also they're more dependent on PAS than they've ever been. I would say at least 20 to 30 seats are going to depend. They're going to depend on PAS cooperation in order for them to win, because the party is no longer as strong as it was in this context. So we do see a situation where they, in an alliance, can come back into government. We saw that very clearly in the case of what happened in Sabah. But we also have to see this at this national stage. But at the same time, you know, there are real tensions in these alliances. And it's not just the alliance within UMNO and PAS and Bersatu, but also I would argue the same sort of tensions exist within Pakatan Harapan itself. And you know, there are concerns, for example, some parties, who in UMNO are you getting your numbers from? For example, PKR. These are the questions people are asking. And it's difficult because at one point, some people are putting the emphasis on power and getting into government. And others are people are looking at the individuals and the composition. And these become really difficult challenges to accommodate in the context of a highly fragmented, personalized, ambition-driven politics as opposed to people-driven politics.
So is this a positive development where we see fragmentation and weaker parties, that there's no hegemonic strong party like an UMNO to keep everything in control? But now we have coalition politics where parties could just switch allegiance. Is this a healthy development, I think, in politics for Malaysia, for democracy?
I think we can see this from two sides of the equation here, all right? It's healthy because people have more choices. There are new policy ideas and new inputs that are coming into the system. There are checks that are happening as a result of coalition politics that can be seen as positive in this area. And I think that if we look at Pakatan Harapan and even to a certain degree in the new GRS coalition in Sabah, there's a sense of inclusivity, and different groups are within, so therefore they have to make compromises. And so, for example, in the PN government of Muhyiddin Yassin, what we've seen is compromises that have been made, for example, on issues of religious politics. So therefore, the tenor of religious discussion, is not as, should we say, not as toxic, not as confrontational as it was before. But at the same time, Malaysia's experienced unprecedented political instability. Three prime ministers in 3 years, constant discussions about whether or not governments are going to fall, constant discussions of whether or not there will be someone has the numbers or not the numbers. And this is taking away from the issues of governance and policymaking to address the real issues that people actually want to see. And then, of course, it's also putting in pressure on issues of elections. And if we look at voting patterns in the context of Malaysia, elections don't necessarily provide the solution, because the divisions are not just within the politics and the parties, but within the society itself. And I think and the solutions to this political instability and coalition forming is also changing things at multiple levels, not just